When I let my unemployed best friend move into my spare bedroom rent-free, I thought I was being a good person. 3 years later, I discovered she'd been running a full Airbnb business out of my home while I was at work. She'd made over $30,000 renting out my property to complete strangers who had access to all my personal belongings. And that's not even the worst part. Hi, Reddit! 3 weeks ago, my entire world turned upside down when I discovered my best friend of 12 years had been exploiting my kindness in the most unimaginable way. Let me take you back to how this all started. My name is Jordan. I'm 31, and I work as a hospital administrator. 3 years ago, I finally saved enough for a down payment on a small 2-bedroom condo in the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and after years of renting, I was proud to be a homeowner. Around the same time, my best friend Taylor lost her job when the marketing agency she worked for suddenly closed. We'd been friends since college, and she'd always been there for me through breakups, family issues, and career setbacks. When she mentioned she was struggling to make rent, offering her my spare bedroom seemed like the obvious thing to do. "Stay until you get back on your feet," I told her. "Don't worry about rent for now. Just help with utilities and groceries when you can." She hugged me with tears in her eyes, calling me her literal guardian angel. We set up the spare room with her things, and it felt like an extended sleepover with my best friend. The arrangement worked well initially. I worked long hours at the hospital, often pulling 12-hour shifts, while Taylor claimed to be applying for jobs and occasionally picking up freelance work. There were some odd patterns I noticed but brushed off. Taylor always insisted on handling the cleaning. She'd get weirdly anxious if I came home unexpectedly during the day, which I assumed was because she was embarrassed about still being unemployed. She also began buying me small gifts: a new coffee maker, fancy wine, a designer bag I'd been eyeing but couldn't afford. When I asked how she could afford these things without steady work, she'd mention a good freelance month, or say she'd been saving for a while. In retrospect, all the signs were there, but I trusted her completely. That was my first mistake. The truth came out entirely by accident. 3 weeks ago, I came down with a severe case of food poisoning during my shift at the hospital. By mid-morning, I was so violently ill that my supervisor insisted I go home. I didn't even text Taylor to let her know. I just wanted to get home and collapse in bed. When I unlocked my front door around 11 a.m., I heard unfamiliar voices inside my apartment. My first thought was that Taylor had friends over, but when I walked in, I saw a middle-aged couple I'd never met before sitting on my couch, drinking coffee from my mugs. They looked as surprised to see me as I was to see them. "You must be the roommate," the woman said cheerfully. "Taylor mentioned you're usually at work all day." "We're the Millers. We're staying for 3 nights. She said she'd be back around noon to give us recommendations for dinner." I stood there, unable to process what was happening. These strangers were acting like guests in my home that I owned. "I'm sorry," I managed to say. "You're staying here, in this apartment?" The husband looked confused. "Yes, we booked through Airbnb. The spare bedroom? Taylor has over 100 5-star reviews. The listing said the roommate is never home during the day, so it wouldn't be awkward." My stomach dropped, and not just from the food poisoning. I excused myself and went straight to my bedroom, pulled out my phone, and searched for Airbnb listings in my neighborhood. It took less than a minute to find it. Cozy private room in city center apartment. The photos showed my spare bedroom, my living room, my kitchen. The listing described access to full kitchen, living room, and bathroom, with the only caveat being that my roommate works long hours so she's never home during the day, but you might see her briefly in evenings. The rate was $95 per night. The calendar showed consistent bookings, almost daily, going back months. The reviews praised Taylor's hospitality and the convenient location of my home. I scrolled through dozens of smiling strangers' profile pictures, all people who had been in my home, around my things, without my knowledge. Some reviews mentioned specific items in my apartment. Loved the book collection in the living room. The fancy coffee maker was a nice touch. While I sat there trembling, Taylor walked in. Her face fell when she saw me. "You're supposed to be at work," she said quietly. "And you're supposed to be my friend," I replied. "Not someone who rents out my home to strangers." I asked the Millers if they could give us privacy. To their credit, they seemed mortified by the situation and quickly gathered their things, saying they would find a hotel. Taylor tried to stop them, saying there was just a misunderstanding, but they left anyway. Once we were alone, Taylor's demeanor changed completely. Gone was the apologetic, grateful friend I thought I knew. Instead, she became defensive and even indignant. "It's not a big deal," she said, crossing her arms. "These are all vetted, respectful people. Nothing has ever been stolen or damaged." "That's not the point!" I was shouting now, something I rarely do. "You've been letting complete strangers into my home, around my personal belongings, my documents, my life, without my knowledge or consent. How long has this been going on?" She looked away. "About 2.5 years. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. 2.5 years? Out of the 3 years you've lived here?" "Look," she said, her tone turning calculating. "I've made good money with this. I can start paying you rent now, better than rent. We can split the Airbnb profits." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. This is about trust. You've been exploiting my kindness and betraying my trust every single day for years." I asked her how much she'd made in total. After some reluctance, she admitted it was a little over $30,000. $30,000 from my property, while I worked 12-hour shifts to pay the mortgage. "So all those times you claimed to be job hunting or working freelance gigs?" "I was managing the Airbnb business," she finished. "And it is a business, Jordan. Do you know how much work goes into maintaining a superhost status? The cleaning, the communication, the little touches guests appreciate." I was speechless at her audacity. She was actually proud of her deception. When I asked about the gifts she'd been giving me, the coffee maker, the designer bag, she shrugged and said, "I figured it was a way to share some of the profits without telling you. You seemed happy with the arrangement." "The arrangement," I repeated slowly, "was helping a friend in need, not setting up a commercial enterprise in my home without my knowledge." I told Taylor she had 48 hours to move out. She tried arguing that I couldn't legally evict her that quickly, but I reminded her that we had no lease, she wasn't paying rent, and most importantly, she had been conducting unauthorized commercial activity in my home, which violated countless regulations. "I could report you to Airbnb, the City Housing Authority, and the IRS," I told her. "I'm guessing you haven't been reporting this income either." The threat of legal consequences finally seemed to sink in. She agreed to leave, but not without trying to make me feel guilty one last time. "I thought we were friends," she said. "Friends help each other." "Friends don't exploit each other," I responded, "and they definitely don't endanger each other's homes and privacy for profit." After she left, I discovered even more disturbing details. A quick check of my home revealed that several valuable items were missing: a pair of gold earrings my grandmother gave me, a branded watch, and even my passport. I had assumed I'd misplaced these things over the years, but now I suspected either Taylor or one of her guests had taken them. I also found a hidden key she'd placed under a loose brick near my front door, presumably for guests to use when she couldn't be there in person. The thought of this secret access to my home made me feel violated all over again. The worst discovery came when I checked my credit report. There were several credit inquiries I hadn't authorized. While I can't prove it was Taylor, the timing aligns perfectly with when she moved in. I'm still sorting through the process of disputing these and monitoring for identity theft. I changed all my locks, installed security cameras, and spent days deep cleaning my apartment, trying to reclaim it as my own space. I still feel uncomfortable knowing how many strangers have been through my home, looking at my things, possibly photographing my personal space. It's been 3 weeks since I discovered Taylor's betrayal and kicked her out. In that time, I've received dozens of messages from her, alternating between angry accusations that I overreacted and tearful apologies claiming she never meant to hurt me. I haven't responded to any of them. Yesterday, I received a certified letter from an attorney representing Taylor, claiming that since she had established residency, I had illegally evicted her. The letter demanded compensation for her lost business income and emotional distress. I've now hired my own lawyer, who assured me that Taylor's claims have no merit given the circumstances. My attorney is also helping me pursue options for recovering the money Taylor made by illegally renting my property. The hardest part of all this isn't the legal battle or even the financial aspect. It's the complete destruction of a friendship I valued for over a decade. I keep replaying our history, wondering if there were signs I missed, if Taylor had always been capable of this level of deception, or if something changed along the way. Some mutual friends have taken her side, saying I should have been more understanding of her financial difficulties. Others have cut ties with her completely after hearing what she did. Our entire social circle has been fractured by this situation. The experience has made me question my judgment and ability to trust. I find myself suspicious of others' intentions in a way I never was before. I've always prided myself on being generous and helping friends in need, but now I hesitate, wondering if my kindness will be exploited again. If there's any silver lining to this experience, it's that I've learned the importance of establishing clear boundaries, even, especially, with those closest to us. Generosity shouldn't mean abandoning common sense or proper documentation. I'm still processing my feelings about everything that happened, but I know one thing for certain: the spare bedroom in my home will remain empty for the foreseeable future. What would you have done if you discovered your best friend had been secretly profiting off your property for years? Would you have pressed charges, demanded the money, tried to salvage the friendship? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more shocking true stories about betrayal, deception, and the unexpected ways relationships can unravel.